Greetings, everyone. Happy Wednesday. This is Shay Parker, and I am your host right here for Metaphysical Minds. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And I know it's been a couple of weeks since we've been here, but we are back and we are ready to get rocking today. We have a very special guest with us. He is an award-winning professional psychic, and he certainly is no stranger to the airwaves. He actually hosts his own show, which we'll give you some more information about during this particular show. But we're going to just jump right in. I'm going to introduce our guest, and our topic today is psychic, excuse me, psychic abilities and where to start with them. And our expert guest today from bestamericanpsychics.com is Marc Lainhart. So Marc, welcome to the show.
Good morning or good afternoon, Shay. Thanks for having me on. So honored to be here, and look, it's a fabulous topic to be talking about, something that in my own journey I didn't know I'd be a psychic or a medium. So I'm happy to share my path and my story, and I'm sure everybody watching has some questions on am I psychic, am I a medium, how do I do this, where do I start? So this will be a fun show, and again, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're honored to have you. And yeah, so folks, that is what we're going to be doing today. Basically, we're not going to be answering psychic reading questions. Okay. So don't pop on and say, hey, what does my career look like or anything like that. But you are more than welcome to jump in here. I know we've already got some comments starting to come up in. People are giving a shout out. Julia Wheeler, hey, good morning from Kodiak Island in Alaska. Ann Godfrey is with us from Virginia. You guys, we love this feedback. Tell us where you're from. Give us a shout out. But also, throughout the course of the show, we are going to be talking about psychic abilities, where to start with them, and we would really like it if you would like to, participate in the show. Type your questions in the comments, and, Marc will be happy to sort of bat them back at you with some super expert answers. And also one thing, I just want to remind everybody, if you type spirit in the comments, just the word spirit, S-P-I-R-I-T, it doesn't have to be capitalized or lowercase, it's not case sensitive, then it will automatically put you into our little messenger bot, and you will automatically subscribe to future shows of Metaphysical Minds. So we'd love to have the support. So without further ado, we're going to jump in. And so Marc, let's take this away with psychic abilities. First of all, the most obvious question is, are we all psychic?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Because the word psychic itself is of the soul. So everybody that comes to Earth that incarnates, and that means moving into a physical form to be in a physical dimension and learn here on Earth, you have a soul. And the word psychic is of the soul, psychosis, and it means that you are just embracing your own soul's journey. So yes, everybody has the psychic abilities. It just really is free will and choice. What do you want to do with those abilities? Do you want to be a psychic and give readings? Do you want to, you can use the psychic abilities in so many different arenas, from writing to music to playwrights to marketing to business. I mean, there's a lot of modalities that the psychic awareness and your intuition, which is the language of your soul, that you can, tap into for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the language of the soul. I mean, that's a really good way to put it, because I think a lot of people don't understand at times that. I mean, like I'm a perfect example. That I'm surrounded by psychics every day, and I mean, we work together and everything, but I wouldn't consider myself to be. I mean, I think I'm intuitive, and I certainly think I'm empathic, but I don't. In other words, I can't do what you can do, or perhaps I could if I really worked at it. But there are some that are just so strongly,
more in tune. Yeah, exactly. See, we're already in tune. We're in tune already.
Yeah. Indeed, we are. So yeah, being the language of the soul, I think that it's a very interesting way to put it, because sometimes we don't really understand what our soul's journey is, at least on the earthly level. I mean, certainly our soul understands it, but it's like, I'm a more left-brained individual. So lots of times I get laser focused on that. Okay, this is my schedule. This is what I've got to do. These are all the things I've got to check off my box, or my list. But then there's this whole other side that is like, hello, I'm still here. So we have to really remember to pay attention to that, So But yeah, so anywho, let's talk about how would we know? Like, what are some signs or indications of having the gift?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I agree with you because I'm very left brain myself. I'm very,
Yes, you are. I love it.
analytical. I was in life saving. I was in the Coast Guard for 8 years. I was in the fire service for 13. So you don't have a lot of time to be in the right brain hemisphere with creativity and psychic and mediumship and awareness. I'm very left brain. So for my journey, it was very actually hard for me to make this transition to use my psychic abilities. And you said earlier that you're not sure that you could do what I do, but I always use the word impossible. And if you write the word down, it means I'm possible. And I believe that we're all capable of being psychic, of being mediumship. It really just is, you get out what you put in. And it's like you don't become a doctor without all those years of going to school. You don't become a lawyer until you go through all that training. And so the psychic modalities are all about spiritual development, something it's completely changed my life. And for me, I actually had to go through required biofeedback because of, for everybody watching, everybody has usually a shakening that causes the awakening process, whether that's age, whether that's you're born sensitive. For me, it was at the age of 27 through great tragedy of losing my brothers to murder and cancer. That completely changed. It was a paradigm shift. And so I was required to go through not only grieving counseling for what I had gone through, but I went through biofeedback, which helped me see from the analytical mind of being hooked up to all these different machines, seeing my brain waves, seeing my breath, seeing my pulse rate, my heart rate, my temperature core. And over 8 sessions, analytically, I could see the results of the power of meditation and the power of finding your happy place. And from there, that journey began for me to go down because I started connecting to the spirit world, this unseen world. And so for those that are watching, I would say, and I always think it's healthy to be skeptical in this work that we do. I think there's that analytical mind already jumping in. I think it's healthy to be skeptical, but we would agree in the world of physics, we would look out a window and see a tree moving, correct? And that tree is being impacted by the wind, and we all see the impact of the wind, but we don't actually see the wind. So did I lose you? Oh, there you are. So we would agree that we see the effects of the wind, but we don't actually see it with our eyes. In the spirit world, your intuition, awareness, sensitivity is very much the same thing. And one quote that really helped me with my journey was from Rumi, who I love. Rumi, he's a 12th century mystic. And one of the quotes that really stuck with me was, let silence take you to the core of your life. Because a lot of the work that we do as psychics, as our mediums, it's about our own awakening and our own spiritual path. And then we go out and we help and we serve others, and we do readings if we want, or you want to be paid to do a reading, whatever your path is, because it's not the same for everybody. But it's really tapping into your intuition and the language of the soul. It's just like if I asked you to speak Japanese, maybe you do speak Japanese, I don't know, or Italian. You just
not so much, no. So, Konnichiwa, that's about it.
But it's really understanding the language of your soul and your psychic abilities. And just like learning Japanese or learning Italian, you have to start tapping into your own language, because it really is your own language. And one of the things from the analytical mind that I was really grappling with when I started was, okay, is this my imagination or is it spirit speak? And I call it spirit speak because it's like, how do I know that this is the spirit world talking to me, and imagination is usually defined as the ability to imagine things that are not real, the ability to form a picture in your mind of something that you have not seen or experienced. That's your imagination. Right. When your intuition kicks in, or spirit speak, it's the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning, or a thing that or consider likely from instructive feelings rather than a conscious reasoning. And for me, that's where it started, because my mind automatically kicks in. That analytical left brain goes, okay, is it real or is it spirit speak? And there's, through development, through trust, through patience, that's where I really started to lean into hearing the voice of spirit, those that are no longer here, as a medium, and really just working with people all around the world. And it's not an easy place to go through for some of the viewers that are watching, because there's an unfoldment and a transformation. Just like the butterfly doesn't become the butterfly until it goes through the cocoon phase. And within that cocoon phase is the struggle, because the struggle sharpens the wings that allows you to fly. And so for those that are just beginning the journey, it can be a very eye-opening, difficult journey, but it does get better. This too shall pass, as we say as Lao Tzu reminds us, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with that single step. So your intention, because energy follows your intentions. What do you want to do with this? Do you want to be a psychic? Do you want to, start developing your psychic abilities? And if so, then find the right teacher, find the right mentor, go to a workshop. I do a lot of teaching with my own spiritual development group all around the country in Canada. And it's weekly development. It's that dedication, just like getting in a workout room. And you're not going to lift a 50-pound barbell, without a little bit of conditioning and practice to build that up. And it's very much the same way in the spiritual world with your psychic abilities.
Yeah. I really, really appreciate you explaining. We're touching on the spirit speak, and that's a great term, by the way. Spirit speak versus just, hey, is this what my imagination or my thought process? Because that's a very, very valid point. And I do the same thing because, my mind goes so much, and then I'm like, well, is this just something that I am creating, like just through points of logic, or I'm imagining it or whatever, or is this valid? And I really like the way that you explained that, because I've asked that question to a ton of professional psychics, and I'm like, yeah, but how do you know what is intuition versus what is your own thoughts, especially if you're a heavy thinker, and like I'm more of an introvert, so I'm in my head a lot, and that. But yeah, so. Now, God, we have a lot to cover today, but we also have a ton of questions here.
Just let me add one more thing to that, because from a metaphysical standpoint, because I work on mindfulness as well, and I look at the body. My graduate studies were in sports medicine and human performance, how the mind works, and we have about 50 to 60,000 thoughts in a day. So think about that for a second. 50 to 60,000
crazy, right?
That are going through your mind. Boom, 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 boom. And you don't have to believe everything you're thinking, right? But we tend to think a lot of the same things over and over again. And when you get into the spirit speaker, you start connecting. Those impressions will usually pop into your head out of nowhere. And that's where you know that it's that psychic ability. You're like, where did that come from? And then you start to analyze. So when you move into that analyze, in a few seconds after, then you know that your mind is kicked in, the monkey mind, right? That keep going until the time we actually pass back into the spirit world. But what really helped me is I'm also a student of history. And if we go back to Joan of Arc during her trial of heresy, she actually would say, you say God speaks to you, but it's only your imagination. And she was killed for that, because she was actually speaking to spirit. But at the time, people were like, oh, no, you can't be speaking to spirit. That's your imagination. And so that, for me, is history. And if you look at, for those watching, go back through history. This is nothing new. This is not Shay or Marc's concept. These are thousands of years of philosophy and theories and connections, and it's different for everybody. But if you sit in that silence, the more still and silent you become, the more you actually hear. And that's kind of for us analytical people, we're like, what? What do you mean we're going to hear if we go silent and still? So.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, there's so many different ways. And silent and still, that brings up a great question that we've got actually from our watchers today about meditation. So we're talking about silent and still. So this is a great segue. Nancy Evans Parr is with us today watching. Thank you, Nancy. But she has a question, and she says, do you have any meditation advice? I can't do it. So I'm going to raise my hand with you, Nancy, because boy, I struggle with it as well. I'm like off in 20 different directions. So Marc, what do you got for us?
Yeah. So the power meditation, in fact, it was the meditation through my graduate studies of sports medicine that opened me up to meditation. Now, and this is Nancy?
Yes, Nancy.
So hi, Nancy. I would say the first thing that I would look at is, what is your impression? What is your perception of what meditation is? Is meditation sitting in special clothes with special mala beads in a certain position and trying to go silent? Or is meditation walking your dog? Is meditation getting out in the garden and planting a garden and putting your hands into the earth, into the dirt? Is meditation swimming in the ocean, something bigger than yourself? Is meditation listening to music or reading a favorite book? People get into their own mind of what meditation should look like, and I always remind people that do something that just allows you to rest your mind and do something that you love. And that can be, I do qigong every morning, for example, which is just the movement of my own energy, my auric field, see if I'm alive, plus lots of coffee because it's still early here in Seattle.
Yeah, it is really there.
But I would start there. The starting point for me is, what do you view as meditation? And if you start asking yourself those questions and you open up your awareness, because Eckhart Tolle teaches us the greatest agent for change is awareness. What are you aware of, and what do you want to tune into, and why do you want to meditate? That's another thing I would tell people. Why do you want to meditate? What is the goal of meditation for you? Is it just to meditate, or is it to, you know, lean into that deeper intuition? Is it to talk to those that are no longer here as a medium? Is it to find that loved one, that next relationship? Is it for a career? So that's where I point people to start. And for those that have a very active mind, I would actually say don't start with the silence, because you're going to go right into another thought. Remember those 50 to 60,000 thoughts? I would start with a guided meditation, somebody that can help guide you like a storyteller. And, you know, I use Insight Timer, which is a free app on my mobile phone. It has over 10,000 different meditations, meditations of sleep, meditations. There's one called F That. I don't even want to meditate. You know, it's that kind of, you know, fun meditation. YouTube. We have technology at our fingertips, the ability to tune in and tap into many different. I remember going to the library to even look up a book and use the Dewey Decimal System. Now it's all right here at our fingertips. So I would say the starting point is, what is your definition of meditation, and what aligns to you to where you can get into a place of just sitting without any distractions. That's another thing. Distractions come up through the power. When you go to set that intention of meditation, you sit and all of a sudden your phone rings, or somebody knocks on your door, or so I would find a place, you know, I don't know if you can see this behind me, but my meditative mat is right behind me. And I meditate either in here in my studio or in the shower, where I know that I'm not going to be disturbed. So find a place and create a space of isolation, so you can even just, you know, even have a chat with yourself. The one person we talk to the most in life is ourselves. And ask yourself, why am I thinking these thoughts? What, you know, is that beneficial to my higher self, my higher good? And then start a guided meditation. So that would be the starting point for somebody that's never meditated or just starting the journey. Find what it is that you want to meditate about, get some guided meditation to start, and then you can slowly move into that silence and sitting in the stillness that Rumi talked about, where you can actually hear more.
Yeah, great advice. And I know, so I'm getting a little bit of feedback, and I apologize to the audience. The audio on this end is for some reason acting up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask Marc a question, and then I'm going to let him talk, and I'm going to drop out and readjust my my mic settings, but I'll still be able to hear him and see him. You guys just won't see me. So, so Marc, let's okay. So hang on. You guys there?
There you are.
Okay. Sorry. I redo it again. It just keeps dropping. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to start with another sort of comment from the audience. Anne Godfrey is a regular with us, and she says, I feel that you have to be very compassionate to be a psychic, as well as being an empath, in touch with your feelings. So can you speak to that a little bit? Do you feel that personal emotion affects your psychic ability?
Yeah, very much so. Because you want to, you know, especially if I'm doing a reading, or if I have an event coming up, I need to be emotionally in a place where I can deliver those messages without being in the way. And for us as guys, it's a little bit tougher, because we were well, at least I was raised, and a lot of guys that I talk to, because I teach a course called The Awakened Man, we weren't always taught to be sensitive. We weren't always taught to embrace our emotional feelings that we were having, and you know, just go out and do our jobs. And you know, especially as a firefighter and as a coastie, you didn't have a lot of times for emotions and feelings. And through my tragedies, it opened me up to where I could actually start embracing that emotional connection, because there is a big emotional connection. But when you're working, you don't want to be in the way of your reading emotionally. Whether it's doing mediumship, I don't want to be in the way. I'm just the messenger. I can't allow my emotions to get in, but I can feel those emotions of, you know, mom coming through on Mother's Day to say I love you, and feel those emotions, which is, you know, that's going to happen through development. You know, I'm a British trained medium. I'm a member of the Spiritual National Union of England. So I've been going for the last 5+ years, trying to identify what the connection is and how to manage these emotions and voices that come through. But you're going to be very empathic. I always teach people, you know, be kind, caring, and compassionate, But also when you're working as a professional, you don't want to be in the way emotionally so you can get that information across, especially mediumship. You don't want to be in the way. You want to express the emotions that you're picking up, but I don't want to put my emotions into that reading. And I've had some very, very impactful emotional readings where it's very hard, where I've got to take a breath and be like, okay, let me just continue with this connection, because you can feel everything. And for those of us that are empaths, we not only feel who we're working with directly in front of us, but we feel things that are unseen, like I was saying, like the wind, but also there's a consciousness, a global consciousness, with what's going on in the world right now. There's a lot going on in the world, and people are feeling, my clients that come to me are talking about how they feel more anxiety, they feel more fear, more panic, a sense of just dread. And so as an empath, that can be, you can take that on as well, because you're picking up global consciousness, you're picking up global emotions, or local, even you're within your community. So, it's important. That's where the power of meditation comes in. That's where the power of spiritual development comes in weekly to help you manage. For those that are watching, some of you are asking the question, like, am I alone out here? Am I the only one that's feeling this? But when you find your, what I call your tribe, vibe with your tribe, you realize when you meet weekly with my online development group, we realize that we have a lot of the same trends and patterns of what we're feeling. And when you see that trend and that pattern, you realize that there's something more bigger happening around you. So it's that awareness. Again, it's that awareness and understanding your intuition, which empathy is part of your intuition, because it's your psychic of your soul.
Sure.
Yeah. So thanks for the question. Yeah.
Yeah, and that really was a great question. Now on that, Marc, you do your own, you do a ton of spiritual work on your own, and you have your own groups and your own show. So I'd like you just to take a couple of minutes and plug that, so that people can learn more from you as they go along, because we just have a brief 40 minutes here, but you've extended this into really tremendous groups and ongoing sort of education and discussion. So can you tell the folks out there what you've got going on with your groups and your shows?
Yeah, so if the starting point, the one-stop shop is marclainhart.com. That's my main website. From there, you can get all of my links to my shows, to my articles. Every Monday morning, I have Metaphysical Mocha Mondays. I've been doing that for over 2 years now, and it's an inspirational show, because I find that inspiration for the week ahead, especially on Mondays, which is everybody's least favorite day usually, is my way to give back and inspire and connect to a community. So that if you want to connect with me through Facebook Live, you can connect to my show. It's at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time through Facebook Live, and then it premieres over on my YouTube channel. And then every Wednesday, I have my live radio show, so I'll be going live here in just a few hours with a really cool guest from England called Inspired Living Radio. And we've been on the air for 4 seasons. So it's a live show that then moves over to the podcast, which is available on iTunes and YouTube and SoundCloud and all those great outlets. So marclainhart.com, or just internet search the Intuitive Prospector, because I came up with the Intuitive Prospector because, again, I kind of wanted that man, awakened man energy, but you have to prospect. You got to put in, you're going to get out, you put in, and prospecting is a big part of it. Spiritual prospecting for your own spiritual gold. And last but not least, if you own an Alexa, or if you own an EchoPod, you can actually open up Positive Living and get daily quotes from me, inspirations from me, how the spirit world interacts with us on a daily basis, what I call signs, symbols, synergy, and synchronicities. So it's a great way to interact. And then, of course, if you want to work with me personally, I do have an online development group that we meet weekly, but it's not open to the public. It's a private group, and it's the ability to see if you vibe with your tribe, if it's the right spot, because not all groups are the right spot for everybody. So, but thank you for allowing me to share that information. And it's a lot of fun. It's literally spiritual prospecting for spiritual gold on a weekly basis. Many different shows. And
your shows are phenomenal, and you are a great speaker, and not just a speaker, you're exceptionally good at empowering people and uplifting them. So everybody out there listening, I can't recommend Marc enough as far as just the public awareness that he spreads about spirituality and your intuitive gifts. And yeah, so definitely check those things out. And we will have his links here up in the comments, so you guys can go check all that out. And I highly recommend that you would sign up with some classes and courses with him as well, if you're looking to develop yourself spiritually, because, you can't go wrong. So that's just our little, and no, we're not being paid to say this. Seriously, guys, Marc's Marc's True Blue. So, but I do want to jump right back really quickly to furthering this, because we want to give as much info as we can. So guys, Marc has trained, as he's mentioned, a couple, in a couple different ways, well, several different ways actually, lots of spiritual development classes and courses and ongoing training. So Marc, why don't you talk to us and speak to a little bit about why you feel that your ongoing self-education is so important. And then also I want to talk about how another psychic's methods may work for you as a natural psychic, and how you can take what works and what doesn't from that.
Yeah, so for me, the spiritual path, whether it's the psychic, whether it's spiritual healing, whether it's mediumship, I've looked at this now as a vocation, that your development should not stop. So, at the beginning of the show, you said professional, and some people in their mind say, oh, he's a professional, so he doesn't need to do any more training. No, that just means I get paid to do what I love to do, but the vocation of it is ongoing. And I really created my weekly development group, not for other people, but for myself. So that I set that intention of, like, going to the gym to work out the body, I'm going to this online group to work out my mind, and my connection of blending with those and building trust within the spirit world too. It's just very much the same way. I'm not just going to go up to strangers and say hi and then give them a reading. The spirit world draws close to me, and we develop a relationship. Oh, hi, I'm Marc. Well, hi, I'm Aunt Betty from 10 years ago. And you develop those relationships, and you do that through development as a lifelong, ongoing vocation. Workshops, I just finished up a mentorship program for 3 years. I've been in a mentorship program with somebody that's very well known and has been doing this work for many, many years, over 50 plus years. She's amazing. And now that my mentorship's over, now I'm looking at, okay, what's my next stage? Because it's that vocation. And it's ongoing training. Whether you're in healthcare, you have ongoing training that you have to do. Whether it's in law, you have ongoing training that you have to do. Even in the fire service, we always were training, always preparing for that next call, that next fire, that next motor vehicle accident, that next big incident. Training. And so its applications are universal for everything that you do in life. There's that ongoing training, and spiritualism, mediumship, psychic abilities. So I would recommend, finding somebody that and you trust, and you feel, move into that feeling of, does this person feel right for me? I offer a mentorship program myself through the summer, but I only mentor just a few people, because it's also that relationship of feeling right. Am I going to be able to help the student? And the student is ready, when the teacher appears. So it's really a vocation is how I would describe ongoing training and setting that intention, because energy follows intentions. And I always, say life is short, so live it and ask lots of questions and go after what you want. Go after your heart's desire. If it's a spiritual path, then follow that. Listen to the God spark in your heart, the whispers of your heart, regardless of what everybody else says. And your mentor will help you develop and unfold those abilities if that's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. But now, on that note, though, let's talk about, because you and I both know this very well, there are many out there who are, spiritual people, and they're out there, teaching classes left and right, and, putting information out there that may not be, okay, so just as an example, you can go on anywhere on the internet and you can find somebody who says, $10,000, I'm going to remove a curse from you. Okay. And you've got dark entities following you around, so I'm going to sell you a bunch of crystals for $15,000 and give you a, whatever. I'm going to say a blessing for you. But at the same time, I teach spiritual development courses. And listen, this sounds a little crazy to folks that might be out there listening, but it happens every single day. We get people through bestamericanpsychics.com all the time that write us and they say, this person took my life savings, and it was all based upon just ridiculousness. So, Marc, let's touch on that a little bit. Yes, the classes and the courses are great, but you also, how do you find the right teacher, in other words?
Yeah, so ask and it should be given. That's the intention. Again, that energy is going to follow your intention. So ask to find the right tutor, the right teacher, the right mentor. It's funny because when I started this, you're right. There's a lot of people out there. There's also a lot of what I call spiritual snobbery of people that are tutorial, and you got to be in my group or my clique. I don't work that way because I found that we're the only species that pays to live here, for one. So we're basing our spiritual path on chopping down trees, turning them into paper, and exchanging them for goods. So we're already behind the 8 ball when it comes to that evolution of our mind, because we're the only species that pays to live here, and we're the only species that measures our life by time. So yeah, and I've had that where people say, hey, can you come to my house and clear a spirit? And I'm like, I wish I had that power. I don't, because in the laws of physics, in my studies and my mentorship, you're either here or you're there. Energy goes and travels. It doesn't just linger and hang out. So when somebody asks me to move a spirit into the spirit world, I don't have that ability. I wish I did. I would probably be making thousands of dollars. But it's about clearing your own consciousness. A lot of what we see from Hollywood movies to what we see on the internet and the media really plants seeds. And so for me, it's not about the money. I didn't get into this about the money. I got into it for you. The journey is about yourself, really. It's about your own healing. It's about answering your own questions. And then before you know it, after a few years, you're in development. And then before you know it, you're a teacher. So I don't even know how I got to this point. I just kind of going along. But I don't get into the spiritual snobbery. I don't get into the groups and the cliques. That's just not the spiritual path. There's enough misery out there to go around for everybody as a light worker. And be cautious if it doesn't feel right and somebody's charging you $12,000 for clearing or crystals. If it doesn't feel right, that's your intuition. That's that radar system of moving into trusting your gut. That's, think about that for a sec. Why do we say from a human standpoint, trust your gut? Why am I going to trust my stomach? That makes no sense. But then when you start to look at yourself as an energetic being, as a spiritual being first, this is a place that your mom brought you in, the psychic antenna, if you will, of connection to life. And so we call that the Monte Poro, or the jewel on the hill. And when you lean into your intuition and you understand and you trust your intuition, that feeling is going to come up really strong and be like, no, this doesn't feel right. And I can't tell you how many times, Shay, that people have had a reading and they've said, you know what, I knew that I shouldn't have married this person, but I didn't listen to that calling. I didn't listen to that intuition. And years later, they're like, man, I wish I would have listened to that intuition 10 years ago. It would have saved me a lot of heartache and trouble. So yeah, there's a business side to this as well. I have written articles about the business side of this, because when I first started, I had a hard time charging people money. Because you want to give your gift away, but if you give it away, everybody's going to take. And if you try to satisfy the world, you please nobody. And so my mentor said, okay, you need to set a price. So I set 25 cents. And she wasn't happy with me when I did that, because she said, now you're disrespecting not only yourself and your work, but those that are working with you, whether it's angels, ascended masters, your higher self, those in the spirit world. And then just trusting and following that path of trust and patience. The next reading I had, I asked the lady, I said, what do you feel like this reading is worth you? And she said, oh, easily $100. And that kind of set the marker for what people will pay you. And sometimes I do donations. That's why I do my shows Monday morning. It's my way of giving back without charging people. You can get a free reading with me, a card reading, mediumship, it just depends. But it's my way of giving back, because again, we're the only species that pays to live here. So just be mindful of what money you're giving away and who you're giving it away to is what I would, that's how I'd answer that question, if that helps.
Certainly. Yeah, no, that's a huge help. And like you said earlier, we're all energy. And if you don't have an equal exchange of energy, then, it is very possible for the people in this industry to experience burnout and being taken advantage of, so we just sort of, want to be mindful of that, because it is their time, effort, energy, training. I mean, Marc doesn't go to all these classes and courses for free. He has to pay money for them. He has to pay airline travel. He has to pay hotel. He has to pay. I mean, he is putting money into it, so therefore has to also put food on his table. So,
It's an investment. That's that vocation I was talking about. Just like paying to go to college. Not everybody needs to go to college. It could be a spiritual vocation, and that's why I pay my money to go to England to get the best, so I can be the best. That's why I'm a part of Best American Psychics, because I can be tested and certified and testimonials. That's a big part of doing this work. But I always remind people that you're not paying me for the reading. You're paying me for the time that I'm giving, because our greatest commodity while we're here, Shay, is our time. And I've learned that firsthand experience. You don't know what the day is going to bring. And at the end of the day, we're another day older, but there are no guarantees for tomorrow. And it's that carpe diem. It really is carpe diem, and you're paying me my time, and my time is precious. And that is, for anybody listening, that is your greatest commodity while you're here, and your greatest superpower while you're here is free will and choice. and have the intuition to make the right choices in the many pathways of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now I do want to, there's a couple of more comments that I want to get in really quickly here, because we've got about 6 minutes left or so. And this, I don't know that it's really a question so much as we can maybe give a little bit of advice. Sherry Self says, my goddaughter used to hold a question in her mind, and I would do an angel card reading for her. She would always give me the big eyes as I spoke, but wouldn't tell me the question, so I never knew how accurate the reading was. So that's a little tough, because, you know, when you don't get the feedback from your sitter, it's hard to know, especially for folks that are kind of budding at this. But Marc, what would just be your quick advice to Sherry on that? Just keep.
Yeah, hi Sherry. A lot of times that's that analytical mind that we talked about at the beginning of the show that's going to want to have that reasoning, you know, I think, therefore I am. I want to know, am I right, am I wrong? Sometimes just giving the message without receiving the feedback is what you've been called to do. And we are, you know, as in mediumship, I always remind people, if you have a reading with me, some of the best evidence will come after the reading. We'll get good gold nuggets during the reading, but it's not up to me to try to edit the reading or try to focus, because now I'm putting myself into the reading and I have no place being in the reading. I'm just the messenger. And sometimes it resonates, sometimes it doesn't. That's okay. You leave that with that person and let it unfold on the weeks ahead. But also sometimes not getting that feedback is just more of that expression with the power of your voice. Bless you. Through the power of your voice and that connection with another person. But again, it's understanding the mindfulness of your analytical mind versus your creative, free-flowing, surrendering mind. And that's usually when I hear that I want that feedback. That's the analytical side, wanting to know based on ego, am I right? Am I not right? You know, can I be more accurate? Do I need to work on myself more? So yeah, it's really about just understanding the mindset. And sometimes you don't get the feedback, and that's okay. You still deliver the message because that message resonates and vibrates. And it's like, you know, when you say something, you don't always see how far that vibration carries. You can change, you know, you change the world by changing yourself, and then that ripple effect goes out, but you don't always get to see how far that ripple effect goes out. And that's the power of doing this work. Yeah,
no, I love that, the ripple effect, and it is profound. So, okay, one more I definitely want to get to before we wrap for today. Julia Wheeler writes, my son is very gifted, and he also has autism. He sees deceased loved ones from the other side and is a natural healer with animals, but I don't know where to start with his education.
Yeah, so depending on, was there an age for him?
Julia, if you're out there listening still, how old is your son? You can just put that in the comments.
I have worked with a few kids. I always remind parents to allow the kids to be kids and be in their state of childhood without starting to develop. Usually around the age of 7 or 8 is where I would recommend to start developing, if that's, you know, if that's what they're interested in. But before that, just let them be
18, children. Marc, he's 18.
Okay, 18. Okay. So yeah, so where I would start with him is just a guided meditation, getting into the power of the mind and sitting and developing a program where he can start to connect daily to himself and to the world around him. Because again, like I said, you know, that Rumi talked about that journey beginning, you know, through the silence of your soul. And for an 18-year-old, you know, I'm trying to think back when I was 18. I don't know if I would have been able to do that. However, the shaking caused my awakening. So, you know, that's a tough question, because, you know, an 18-year-old, you're still developing and
the
world around you. Good books, you know, the technology that we have is much different than when I was 18 years old, to be honest with you. So there's a lot of different outlets that he could tap into, but I would say what feels right to him, sit down, have a conversation with him, and what feels right for the path that he wants to go. Because he may be very gifted, but he may not want to tune into those gifts. I did that for the first few years of when I first opened up. I didn't want to tune in because of all the things of judgments and, you know, what are my family going to say? What are my friends going to say? The judgment that comes with that, the woo-woo, that's weird. Yeah, it's that's a tough one for 18-year-old, because it's such an impactful age. But for if you're younger, I would say don't develop until after the age of 8 or 9. Let them be children. Because there's no filters. They're very connected. They're very in tune. Children are very, very in tune. And if he's autistic, They're looking at even the science between autism. It's almost like it's a higher consciousness because they're not, they don't care about what's going on, the basics of what you and I do. There's more of a higher consciousness there. So great question.
Absolutely.
But feel what's right. Ask him to feel what's right and who's right for him to help him on that journey, that journey of 1,000 miles that begins with a single step.
Well, and speaking of that journey, she just said that he's 19, he's about to graduate, and he is going to Albuquerque with Julia. So that's amazing. Albuquerque is a very New Mexico in general is a very spiritual place. So awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think you guys will have a lot to take in there. So, well, Marc, I can't thank you enough. These timelines, they fly so fast. It's just like we're on and we're off. But I know you have another show to get ready for. So guys out there listening, be sure to check Marc's links today for his upcoming show. And I highly recommend that you subscribe to his groups and his ongoing shows, because he puts out an incredible amount of information. He's got some super interesting guests on a regular basis. And honestly, he's just a phenomenal spiritual guide for you, if you will. So definitely check him out. Like I said, his links are all right here in the comments, and you can find him there. And I can't recommend enough that you do sign up for some of his classes and courses as well. And if none of that comes to pass, at least get a reading from him, because he is super duper accurate. You can check out his testimonials on bestamericanpsychics.com. And he's not going to steer you wrong. So with that said, Marc, I want to thank you, sir. I want to wish you a I see you next time
I would just remind people to be inspired, inspire others, and inspire before we expire, because life is short. Live it. Dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live. Thank you so much, Shay. I appreciate your time.
You're very, very welcome. Thanks so much, Marc. And everybody out there listening, thank you. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Remember, type spirit in the comments if you want to subscribe to future shows. And until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of one another. This is Shay Parker and Marc Lainhart. We're signing out. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.